Got it. All right. All right. I'm Michelle Wheel, Chairperson of the Northborough Library Board of Trustees, and I call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. I will now read the remote meeting advisory. This open meeting of the Library Board of Trustees is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29, 2023. All members of the Board of Library Trustees are allowed to and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Board of Library Trustees to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. I will now do a roll call. Attendance, please reply in the affirmative when I call your name. It's Brittany Burns, not here. Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen, I'm here.
Pat Fonts. Oops, you're muted, Pat. Can you unmute? Sorry. Okay.
Pat Fonts here.
Great, thank you. Jim Hogan.
Jim Hogan here.
Jocelyn McKelney.
Jocelyn McKelney here.
Beth Samus.
Beth Samus here.
Richard Tucker.
Richard Tucker here.
Michelle Wehill is here, and we also have Library Director Jen Bruno with us. I have no opening remarks, so that being said, I move to the approval of the minutes of the June 13th, 2023 meeting.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of June 13th, 2023 as presented.
Thank you, Mitch. Do I have a second for the minutes?
Second.
Jocelyn McKelney. Oh, go ahead, Beth.
All right, I'm giving it to Beth. All right, I will now do a roll call of the members for approval of the minutes. Brittany Burns. Oops,
Brittany Burns, yes.
okay, thank you. Sorry I cut you off. Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat Fonts.
Pat Fonts, aye.
Jim Hogan.
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McKelney.
Jocelyn McKelney, aye.
Beth Samus.
Beth Samus, aye.
Richard Tucker.
Richard Tucker, aye.
And I, Michelle Wehill, also approve the minutes as presented. Thank you all. Oops, I just know that goes over here. And you noted that we will not have the appropriations report for FY23 because the books do not close until sometime next week, correct?
Yeah,
So-
I think the end of this week. Yeah, so we will send
Alrighty.
it out before next meeting or with next meeting's information.
Okay, that sounds good. So we can skip over that item. Go directly to the library director's report.
Great. Just a note, down under the summer kickoff events, I had written that there were 140 attendees that came to the mini golf and Nintendo game. I was wrong. It wasn't 140. It was 410.
Oh.
So I just wanted to, yeah.
Whoa.
That was a typo. Those numbers were transposed. 410 people playing mini golf and Nintendo games in, I think it was a 3-hour window. So yes, while 140 sounded impressive, 410 is the real number.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing.
Yes.
Let's see. Anyone have any questions about any of the things in the report? Mitch?
There's a question. You said the LED fixtures had been Ordered, that includes the parking lot fixtures. Great.
Yes, and I have just a slight update that Sean, our facilities manager, and the company actually doing the work are working on scheduling a meeting so that we can kind of get on the same page about what the timeline is, whether the work to the inside of the building is going to be done while the library is open, after hours. Hopefully we don't have to close for any amount of time, or if we do, it's very short. So I will get all of that information when that meeting happens, which will hopefully be in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Cool. Thank you. And I hate to ask this about the heating coil that needs to be replaced. Is that on next year's budget? Next fiscal year? Or, well, the current year we're in, I guess.
I really, so I took that one home with me and I sat on it and I thought about it. And ultimately I wound up using grant funds because $7,000 is so much of our repair budget. And I didn't want to go, we didn't have it obviously in the fiscal 23 budget. It could go on the fiscal 24 budget and leave us stressed out for most of the year because of such a large expense. So I suggested that we take it out of the Mass Cultural Council ARPA, not ARPA funding, but CARES Act funding, or it was COVID relief money. Just so that we don't start the year stressed out. That was not a great day.
No. Nobody wants a bill for $7,000 when they didn't expect it.
No, that was crushing.
Mm-hmm. All
So-
right.
Fortunately, we did have that funding. I do think it fits sort of well within the grant intent. And because it was such a large unexpected expense, it just felt like the right thing to do. But it wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want the ceiling leaking in the first place, but this will solve that problem anyway. So I will just eventually get over the sticker shock at some point.
Yeah. All right. Did anybody have any other questions? Jocelyn?
Trying to use the raise hand function.
Jocelyn first.
Jen, on using the grant funds, first, I think, and remind us, I'm pretty sure there is almost no restriction on what we can use that funding for. Does taking that funding for this repair put into danger anything that we were planning or you were planning to do with the grant funding? Or are you still able to do the things that you had on your immediate list?
Should be able to do everything that we wanted to do. I had sort of earmarked in the back of my mind some money from that grant fund, just knowing how unpredictable some of our systems can be. So it was, while this was not a predicted expense, it was sort of part of the funding that I had allocated for, like, just in case. I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly, but
Okay.
yeah. So no, we should be good with the projects that we wanted to move forward with.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from anyone?
I have a comment. It has nothing to do, unfortunately, with the heating coil. I happened to be in the library today working on cataloging, and Katrina was looking up the latest summer reading enrollments. So I said, "Oh, why don't you give them to me and I'll send them on to the trustees tonight." So just so you'll know, this is just for so far as we've gotten with July 11th.
Yep.
596 registered and 140 early literacy sheets. I'm not quite sure what that is, but that sounds awfully good. So I just wanted to pass that on and give you a little boost there.
Yeah, and that's just, those are just the numbers for the children, right?
Right,
So when
just for
we
the
add in,
children.
yep, the adults and the teens, it's been really successful this year.
I can tell you,
And
just from looking at this afternoon in the library, it was crazy in the children's room. It was busy.
Yes, yes.
that's a big uptick from the number from the signups at the summer kickoff event too.
Yeah, it was, it's been busy. Oh, and our first Monday morning went really well.
Yay.
I will not tell you the ratio of people who thought we were always open on Monday morning to people who had seen the announcement and were excited for us. But we got a lot of strange looks when we said, hey, welcome to our new Monday hours. And they were like, I'm always in here on Monday mornings. I don't know. This isn't new.
Just your imagination.
You weren't supposed to be.
Right? How'd they get in?
Who let you in?
Do the book.
Yeah, I don't always know what day of the week it is during summer, so.
I think that's exactly what it is.
I don't always know what day it is. Let's
Right.
just start there, period.
Okay.
Exactly.
I thought that only happened to retired people or teachers during the summer.
No,
No.
because we have medical appointments almost every day and we need to keep track of those.
Don't tell me that.
Ah.
I'm already
COVID
falling-
has detached my brain from the space-time continuum. I don't know what month it is.
As long as you remember the second Tuesday of the month, we're all good.
I have an alarm on my phone or I would not remember.
Oops. All right.
But I have to put in personal information on forms when I'm checking into places. I identify myself as a Klingon.
Well,
That's amazing.
well, thank you for sharing that. Now we all know what.
We know, yeah.
So
Better
be
be in the
careful.
minute.
All right. So are we done sharing personal background information?
Yes,
And moving on, can we move on from the library director's report? All right. The next item under new business, the subcommittee assignments. I did tell you last month that I was going to keep everyone in the same spot unless somebody said, no, please don't do that. So just to make it official, for the administrative committee, it's Jocelyn, Beth, and Pat. Long Range Planning Committee is Jim, Richard, and Brittany. And Building and Grounds is Mitch and Michelle Rehill, and TBD, because we are now short one trustee. So that lucky person will get to join us on the riveting Building and Grounds Committee. So that makes it official because it's on the agenda. I did it. We were having the possibility of talking about dates for in-person trustee meetings. Does anyone want to talk about, like we were saying, we in general, I think we were agreed we're going to continue doing remote meetings as long as they will allow us to, but occasionally it's good to have in-person meetings. Did anyone have any months that they want to suggest that we have in-person meetings? Does anyone still feel strongly about anything? Jocelyn?
Since it was my suggestion that we come back with thoughts, I figured I would go first, thinking it would be appropriate to have at least 3 in-person meetings, and I would propose March, July, and October, spreading the meetings out through the year and avoiding the worst of the cold, flu, COVID months and the holidays over the winter. Just so you have an insight into some of the things that happen up here.
I think that works for me. I only had one thing I wanted to do, but then I realized that it becomes a scheduling nightmare if we try to have meetings. I was hoping to have a before an in-person meeting, have staff drop in just to check in and say hi to the trustees and give us an update, but like informal, not part of the trustee meeting. But then that just is dependent on who's in the library at any given time, who's scheduled to work and coverage. And I think that just adds a little level of complexity to what goes on. So even though I was saying that I absolutely positively wanted that, I'm going to let it go.
With 3
So-
meetings, though, I could always schedule like one department. You know, like I can spread them out over the 3 meetings so that you get to meet all of the staff just sort of through the year. If you wanted.
Yeah, I might give that a whirl. But I think, Beth, were you going to say something, or Brittany?
I was just gonna ask Jen if you had any months in particular that you think are better. Otherwise, I'm fine going with Jocelyn's schedule. It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, we're pretty flexible. So, I mean, the rationale sounds good. Avoiding the worst weather months and holidays and things like that. So, yeah, I'm good with those dates.
All right. That works for me too. And anybody else?
I was just gonna ask if the July one is challenging. I mean, people are on vacation right now. Is that a tough one to ask people to come in for?
Let's swap it for June.
It's more up
I
to
wonder-
you. I wouldn't plan a vacation necessarily. Like if I knew we were in person, I would work around it. I don't know if I'm the only one away.
I think there's always going to be some conflict. To be honest, I didn't look at any holiday calendars, I'm thinking more along the lines of the school calendar. So I don't know what else could potentially conflict with those dates. I know I have a trip coming up in October that might conflict with the in-person meeting. So, I think there's always going to be people traveling, and if it looks like enough people will be gone but could participate remotely, maybe we swap it. It's just an idea I just threw 3 dates out there to see if they'd stick with the rest of the trustee team.
Beth, if we did your suggestion into June, we could possibly roll October back to September. That would be kind of like our first meeting after the August break. But I think, Jocelyn, you're right about keeping March. I don't think rolling back to February is the best idea in terms of snow.
I also thought of like February vacation for the schools too. We might run into trouble with February. Same with April. Like that was, again, I was thinking school calendar as the one that would cause the most disruption with trying to meet in person.
Seems to me that
Okay. I'm sorry, Jen.
our September meeting, we've had a little kind of a fete with for staff, and so maybe that ought to be an in-person meeting. And then moving forward, we can think about the others. I don't know.
It's July, but I've been thinking about that, meeting in September just to get like I said, just so that as many people as possible, any staff who were around could kind of check in and let us know how the summer went. But then I wonder, does that possibly run into problems with parent nights, open house nights at school at the beginning of the school year? Because they usually try to get those in pretty early in September. And if people work in schools or have children and need to be going to open houses and such, I was thinking that maybe that would probably not be the best idea for the in-person, but again, we could.
September is tough. If you're thinking about the rest of the staff being able to make it, just because there is a lot sort of like with back to school programming, and lots of like, sometimes we have people who take vacations in the fall because summer is a little bit busier. It's a little hard to get away. October should be fine.
What do you think? Stick with the March, July, and October as the potentials. Since these are like not, these meeting in person isn't carved in stone on those dates, they're just suggestions for us. So I was not going to ask anyone to make a motion and vote on that. I would just like to hear some general agreement from folks if they think that that's great, because it also gives us that flexibility if something comes up and it's like, oh, we really have a problem here, we have to go back to a remote. We can do that without too much trouble. So do I get an informal like thumbs up from people? Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay, cool. All right. So thank you for bringing it up, one, Jocelyn, and for being willing to throw that out there. I like your idea, 3. And so potentially, I mean, right now we're saying March, July, and October will be our in-person meetings. If we need to move them around a little bit, we can do that. But I think just in general, that will work for us. So awesome. Anybody else want to say anything about that? Because if not, we can move on to date of the next meeting, which will be September 12th, 2023 at 7 p.m. and will be remote. And then I will ask, is there any other business that may come before the board at this time? Seeing nothing, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Move
make
to
that motion.
adjourn.
Oh, I'm giving it to Richard.
I'll second.
Thank you. I will do the roll call for adjournment. All those in favor of adjourning: Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat Fonz,
Pat Fonz, aye.
Jim Hogan,
Tim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McElhenney,
Jocelyn McElhenney, aye.
Beth Samus,
Beth Thomas, I.
Richard Tucker,
It's Tucker, aye.
and I, Michelle Wehill, say aye as well.
Last question. I just have one. Who seconded that motion? Was it
Jocelyn.
Brit? It was Jocelyn.
Richard moved, Jocelyn seconded.
Richard moved it. Jocelyn. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. That being updated and said, I adjourn this meeting at 7:25 p.m.